welcome back to another episode of Focus Into the Cloud. Today we are joined by Matt Lawrence, and we're going to explore his journey from PeopleSoft to co-founding a successful boutique Workday consultancy. We'll cover building and selling a business, key decisions for success, and the future of the cloud market and AI. Plus, we'll also be sharing valuable advice for newcomers to the Workday ecosystem. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
Welcome to everyone to this episode of Enter the Cloud. I'm very, very pleased to be joined by Matt Lawrence, the EMEA commercial lead from Advisors. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Lloyd. It's good to be here. Good to be here chatting to you.
Yeah, great to be in your presence, as I should say.
So, likewise. Yes.
Now you've been, obviously Workday is kind of your background, right? But I'm interested to see where was Matt Lawrence born? Not where you was born, but sure. Where was the career born, and what led you towards ultimately it was cloud and then the stuff that went afterwards?
Yeah, so cloud is a long time ago now, and we founded the business in 2010. So yeah, that's kind of 14 years ago, which seems an absolute lifetime. But I did have a life before that, and I was actually in the PeopleSoft world. So. Okay. Like quite a few people in the Workday space, I came from that background. Yeah. I've been doing PeopleSoft for a number of years before that, kind of worked my way up. I was a technical consultant, building reports, changing the system. PeopleSoft was very different to Workday in that you could hack it apart. You could completely customize the system inside out. So
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember it.
You were there as well? Yeah.
I was helping a few customers to find some contractors and a few permies. Back in the day, I was originally an Oracle recruiter.
Okay, yeah. Well, we kind of crossed paths with Oracle when the takeover happened, which I think was 2005. Oracle acquired PeopleSoft, and so my own journey kind of just stuck around with PeopleSoft for a long time, and worked my way up kind of a very traditional route, I guess you'd call it, technical side, functional side, team lead, project management, account management.
What led you towards PeopleSoft though? I don't want to talk too much about your previous life before PeopleSoft, but tell me about your degree, your university, and then where you thought you would be in that first 5 years after university, and then ultimately where you ended up.
Well, I actually did an economics degree purely because I enjoyed economics, and it seemed like something that might lead to bigger and better things. I really had no plan, no idea what was going to happen. But I'd always been quite technical. I'd always, tinkered with computers and stuff. So when I graduated, I just started applying for jobs, as you did. And I applied for a job that was a graduate trainee for an IT company called FI Group. Don't exist anymore. Okay. So I started with them, and then very quickly realised tinkering with computers was very different to programming. It was COBOL. It was very old school stuff. We did a lot on the Y2K bug, as it was known, and I realised that absolutely was not for me. I wasn't cut out to be a programmer at all. So kind of just looked around within that internal business and thought, how can I get out of this particular area I'm in now? And FI Group themselves were deploying PeopleSoft. So I managed to just kind of got myself onto that internal project, really just kind of a sideways step. They were looking for people to come on board, so did the training, and just from there, that's really where that all started.
Did you start as a technical PeopleSoft consultant?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was cutting code, writing reports, SQL, all that good stuff.
But it's not the same as being a programmer from an IT side, is it? And I think it's a bit more interesting. I think.
Yeah, if you look at
the coders out there,
if you look at the vision as well, when you're stuck doing COBOL programming on programs written in the 1960s, that's all you can see, your future, and I was working alongside guys who've been doing it for 20 years, and I thought, I've absolutely got to get out of here. When you start in something like PeopleSoft world or the ERP world, you can see many paths throughout that kind of career that, are much more interesting than the kind of technical stuff that I was doing. So again, I saw that as a main means to kind of step up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So how long did you stay as a technical consultant before you obviously went into the functional side of PeopleSoft?
Yeah, I'm going back a lot now, Lloyd. It's it was probably 2 or 3 years, I guess. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but it was that kind of thing. But Also, I've never had a single role and that's been it. It's always been kind of start doing this and then pick up some other things as you go along, and you start doing, on a project, you start working different things, wearing multiple hats. So it was kind of a transition rather than a black and white, stop doing this one day and start doing the next.
Yeah.
I think for me, again, it was more interesting to get into the project management side. That to me was kind of where I wanted to get to, where I stepped to quicker than being in the functional side of the house.
Yeah. When did the sales element of your role come out?
Yeah,
because technical consultant to a little bit more on the functional side, and then obviously the project management side. Where did the sales element come?
Again, I just kind of fell into it, and I think you'll appreciate this. Just always been good at talking to people, and people respond to you. People start asking questions around, well, how do we get this, that, and the other in the system? So then you kind of, almost without realising it, you start selling stuff. You start saying, okay, well, we can also do that for you, and there's this other module we could do for you. So you just, through talking, through having that conversation, I think it was good having that, certainly the technical background, but also the system overall.
Yeah.
Just understanding how the system hangs together, different parts of it, etc. And then you can talk knowledgeably about what the customer's asking for and how you can do it. So they take you seriously.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, you're then kind of selling another 6 months PeopleSoft project on the back of what we just done to deploy it. So.
Was there a point in time where you thought, this is my way here?
Yeah, it probably was, and it was probably within that transition, I guess, that the talking to people, the understanding the requirements, the stitching it together for them. You kind of just think, actually, I know what I'm doing here. I feel comfortable in it. Not that I hadn't felt that comfortable, in what I was doing before, but just more natural, more easy to do that kind of stuff.
Okay, so fast forward pre-cloud, right? So what were you doing then, and how did cloud? How was it founded? I certainly remember when I founded Focus Cloud, not with K.
Not with K, no, yeah.
And the transition period of choosing a name and the realization that you're actually going to do this as well, right? So let's go sort of 6 months back pre-cloud.
Yeah.
What was you doing?
So it's probably a little bit further than 6 months. So I was working with Ian Maslin and John Barrett. So they had a pretty successful PeopleSoft consultancy.
Yeah.
But we realised that the PeopleSoft world was falling apart. That takeover from Oracle, just the market was not responding well to it. So customers were not doing much. They certainly weren't taking on new PeopleSoft projects. So it was maintenance, it was AMS type stuff. And we realised that actually we had to do something different. So the three of us just got together, over a pint and started having a chat about it. What should we do? Let's start looking at other systems. They were the obvious ones: your Oracles, your SAPs, your Microsoft.
This is their previous consulting.
This is the PeopleSoft business. So we realised that actually we had to kind of transition away from it to survive as a business. So it was quite a sink or swim mentality. Through the PeopleSoft links, we had some connections to Workday, some US consultancies that we kind of spoke to and just said, hey, what's this Workday all about? And from then we just thought, this is it, absolutely. We saw the product, we went to a demo just down the road here in London, must have been about late 2008, 2009, and we just thought, this is absolutely what our customers need from a system. This is not what they're getting from any of those other systems we've spoken about. Workday absolutely has nailed it. So we thought, right, how the hell are we going to do this? How the hell are we going to do a Workday business? So the three of us put our heads together. You asked about the name. Yeah, I think we just kind of sat there one night, again, probably in a bar, just having a chat over a few drinks. And the name Cloud with a K was born. I mean,
what other ones were there?
Oh, I can't remember. I mean, we're going back a long time.
I know we're going back a long time.
Yeah, I think we wanted just to be something that it didn't really mean anything. So, not system components X, Y, Z. It was something that was just a word. We wanted to be at the front of the alphabet. Yeah. Rather than the back of it, just because, again, you look at listings on a company, you start calling the ones at the top of that list, just basic stuff, which probably is meaningless nowadays, but that's what we did. So Cloud with a K was born, and we thought it's a little bit different. Yeah. Cloud computing is the in thing back then. It's what everyone's starting to talk about. So let's be linked to that. And
it's a really cool name.
Okay. No,
it's a really, really cool name.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I came across you guys.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought was, that's a cool name. It really did stick out, because it was like, with a K. Like, can you spell that with? That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it sticks in your mind, doesn't it? You know. Yeah. So you set up a new business.
We did.
So what happened to the old PeopleSoft business?
Well, there were two reasons for that. One was, although we saw that business as depleting, it was still a relatively successful business. We had a number of kind of AMS customers. We were just keeping the lights on, keeping things going along. So we thought, actually, let's not kind of disrupt that, because if this newfangled cloud thing doesn't take off as we think it will, then there's always this other business that we can fall back and rely on. Plus, there was lots of animosity between Workday and Oracle, who obviously owned PeopleSoft at the time. So we thought, let's just have a kind of degree of separation between it. So we set up a brand new business, and what we actually did was we started transitioning the employees from the old PeopleSoft business into cloud, and then we would sub them back to do AMS work. So the reason we did that, not to kind of cheap accounting or anything like that, was because we had to have employees of the business to be trained on Workday. They had to be proved to be employees of that business, whereas anyone could be a PeopleSoft consultant those days. So it was kind of a tactical decision, like, let's bring people over, we can then get them trained on Workday, we're then ready with this business, but we've got money coming in through this other route. So that's kind of what we did, why we had the two businesses.
And that was super early, wasn't it?
It was 2010.
2010. So in the UK, you guys were the first consultancy doing Workday.
First ones outside North America.
How many customers were there in the UK at that
There
particular
was
time?
one customer in the UK at that time.
I knew it was super early.
Yeah. But again, I mean, Workday, I think they just bought Cape Clear in Dublin, in Ireland. So we knew that Europe was going to be the next kind of hunting ground for them. They had two sales guys based here. They had no office. So it was a leap of faith. It really was. But, looking back, it was the right time to do it.
Was there ever a time when you thought, in the early days of cloud, was there ever a time when you thought, oh, this was a mistake?
Yeah, absolutely there was. And I think, again, the three of us, with Ian and John and myself, we used to sit down and look at this successful but declining business versus a business over here which was just cost, and thinking, hang on a minute, how long are we going to give this till things start to move? But within 6 months, Workday had an office in London. They had people on the ground here. They brought some of their US team over to help kind of set the business up. Because we were the only ones, we committed. We proved to Workday we were serious about it. So they actually said, okay, fine, we'll sub some work to you, and we sell deals. So money started coming in. So I'd say probably that 6 month period was a little bit difficult, but we held on. It's
the most touchy part of a business, isn't it?
It is. But even after that, I think, when you've got a young business, you've got salaries to pay, people are relying on you, you haven't had an invoice paid, and you're getting to the end of the month, you're thinking, okay, this is getting serious now.
Got to pay the
exactly
got to pay the salaries, and
got to pay the rent.
We haven't taken any money yet.
Yeah. So again, that first probably 18 months was a lot of that, just really by the seat of our pants, and fortunately Workday was going really tremendously well and growing significantly. So, but then you got the balance as well. You know this very well. Of right, we need 4 more people, but shit, we haven't got any money to actually pay them. How are we going to figure this out? Okay, well, let's take 2 on, get them out straight away, and then by the end of the month we might have enough cash to actually go and employ some more people. So it was very much kind of hand to mouth in those days.
Wow. Yeah. So were there times when the three of you were sitting down kind of, pulling your hair out, I say?
Yeah.
You've not had many times like that, have you, Matt?
I'm a little bit more safe in that than you are. Again, I think there were lots of challenging conversations in those early days, just around, what the hell are we going to do? Clearly we could see that it was the right decision, and Workday was growing, and other partners, certainly the big boys, were starting to do it. So we thought, okay, if they're doing it, we've got something right here. We're definitely on the right path. Yeah. But still, you've got to pay salaries, and things have to come out.
You hit the curve. Well, you hit the curve before the curve started.
Yeah.
Really, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was super early.
I think in reality we were probably about 6-ish months too early. But if we hadn't have done it, we might not have been taken seriously by Workday, because they would have had the big boys on board. They would have had some other probably established consultancies doing it rather than just, 3 blokes who thought it was a good idea and convinced someone in Workday to trust them. So I think we really hit that kind of sweet spot of timing.
So you win your first project, okay? Who was the first project with?
My God, well, we did sub work originally through Workday first of all, and some of the other big players actually came to us and subbed to us. So our first probably year was really just subbing. The first one we won directly was, I think it was ISS, which is not the ISS, not them. There's a shipping company called ISS that were one of the early ones. So yeah, that was a win. And ERM as well. That was an early one. For
ERM,
us.
environmental.
Yeah, research management. Yeah.
So
I think those were two kind of.
Talk to me about the first. You win this project, and I know what it's like. You're trying to get this business off the ground, and there's, it's a rocky road in the first 6 months, right? And there's times when you think this was a mistake, and then other times you think this was a great idea, and then you win this project. Mm-hmm. What happened with the 3 of you on the moment you won the project?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was lots of high-fiving, lots of fantastic. We've won our own business, just kind of, we've done it, guys. Well done. We've arrived. We've actually made it this far. But then very quickly, the reality sets that, oh crap, we've got to deliver this now. We've got a great team of people. We know that. We trust them. A number of these people we worked with for many, many years, so we didn't have any concerns there. The 3 of us also got certified in Workday as well, because we wanted to understand the system. We wanted to help with that early things. And again, to your earlier question around sales, it helps selling it to actually understand it and be able to talk knowledgeably about the system and how it hangs together. But it did mean that the 3 of us had to roll our sleeves up and actually get stuck in, and we all worked on those early projects. So,
what did you do on the first one?
I think I was the project manager.
Project manager,
yeah.
Okay.
So, learning it as we went along, we were, a page in the manual thinking, right, what do we do now? We're at this stage of the system. Fantastic.
It's a totally different system though, isn't it, to PeopleSoft? It's obviously in the cloud. So what type of issues did you come across?
I mean, the issues are the same. I think, interestingly, different system, but issues are the same. So, customer data is always a problem on any system. They've got the wrong data, it's not tidy data, that's a problem regards to the system. If anything, with cloud, it's a bit more visible and you can't go in the back door to fix it, so it's there when you go live, your data's there. I think the problems we had in those days were actually limitations of the system. I think because Workday was a new product, and these were all HR projects, by the way, there were no financial projects here in those days. So it was kind of, Workday doesn't do a lot of the things that they want the system to do. And these customers who were coming off PeopleSoft, Oracle, SAP, they were used to getting out the system what they wanted. You couldn't do that with Workday. SaaS-based, it was delivery model, it was configurable, not customizable. So those were the challenges when a customer's saying, I need this, that, and the other out of my system, and saying, well, it doesn't do that, sorry. So it was more of a challenging conversation than a kind of system limitation conversation.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of issues early days with cloud adoption? Because you kind of hit it before the world started to really consider cloud as a viable option for their software.
Yeah, good question, because I remember the conversation in those days, and I can't remember the point it flipped, but it was probably 3 or 4 years later. Well, we had to explain what cloud meant. We had to explain what the SaaS delivery model meant. We had to explain that you don't need a room full of servers and your own DBAs and all that kind of stuff. And that was half the battle in those days to explain it, because they saw the system, they saw a demo of Workday and said, that's amazing, we want it. But then you had to explain what it meant with cloud. Security always came up. Well, I don't want my data in the cloud. It means anyone can access it. Yeah. No, we can't. And actually, it's more secure. And here's some case studies, and here's some examples as to why your data is more secure. Look at Workday. Look at how they protect data, protect their own kind of infrastructure, etc. So it was a really interesting conversation those days, and it was more about the cloud. It was probably 60-70% of the conversation was about the cloud and SaaS. And then the rest of it was just about the project, the functionality of the system. Yeah. And that did switch, as you say, cloud became the go-to delivery model, and everyone started understanding cloud. I mean, Salesforce had been doing it for a while, so I think Salesforce were kind of trailblazers in that respect. And then as people started to understand it more, and it was just accepted, and now you don't even, no one mentions it's cloud, it's just, okay.
Well, it's almost like nowadays customers don't even think about implementing a product that's on-prem.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You can have it in the cloud.
Yeah, why would I have to buy a server? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so years-wise, we are what, 2012, 2013 now?
Yeah.
Okay, and you built this business to be, the most successful Workday consultancy, certainly in the UK, if not EMEA. At what point did you think, oh my God, this is working? Because there is a transition, isn't there? Like, as a business, as a founder of a business, you think you go through like the first year or the first 2 years, and then there is a realization within yourself. You don't necessarily tell anyone, but within yourself, this is working.
Yeah, and it was around that period, I think 2013, probably late 2013, we had our first phone call from someone saying, you've got a great business here, let's have a chat about, the next stage, about investing, about, equity in it, about selling the business, etc. And then you start to realise, wow, if other people are interested, then that does mean we've done something right. We've got a good model here. So it was probably about that period. I mean, I think, to be honest, though, we were all just running 100 miles an hour and ridiculously busy, running projects, selling stuff, getting new people on board, training them, that you don't really have time to think. Again, I'm sure you've been through exactly the same.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. You're just trying to survive each month and not really worry about what's going to happen in 6 months' time.
What about the work rate? So more on the personal side here, right?
Yeah.
Having a career as a PeopleSoft consultant and somewhat working, your typical 5 days a week, having your weekends off, and then you start this business cloud. I don't even have to ask you, but I'm sure it wasn't 5 days a week.
No, not at all. And again, I think if you think about the speed we were running at, the fact we were involved in delivery, involved in selling, involved in recruiting, involved in Workday conversations, partnerships, etc., that, it was a 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah.
The difference was, though, and I think something that Workday brought to the table that was very different, was it was a remote working model. So we didn't have to be on customer site, whereas in the PeopleSoft days, you used to have to get up in the morning, get in your car, go on a train, etc., travel to customer site, you'd be there for 8 hours, you then travel home. There was a lot of wasted time.
Right.
With the Workday model, actually you could service those customers remotely, and we did service customers throughout Europe and further afield, actually. So we were able to do stuff without needing to be travelling every single day. So I think that freed up some time. So you had the time that you would have just been wasted commuting.
Yeah.
You could use that for other things which, were then helping to grow the business. So that was quite a shift as well.
Yeah. How about you within yourself? So what point did you start to change as an individual, and how did this business affect your family? Because I know you've got children as well.
Yeah.
So all that comes into play, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and I think it's interesting at that period, especially because I had young kids at the time. So
how old were your kids?
They were about 4 and 1 at that period.
Okay.
So busy time at home.
Yeah.
Which running around doing stuff. It was a challenge. I think it was a challenge, but I made sure I was there for the important times. The birthdays. I made sure that I was. Okay, if I was working at weekends, at least I was going to be at home and I'd spend time with them. I wanted to be active in, bath time, bedtime. So if it meant, okay, I'll have a couple of hours where I'm not working, I can pick the laptop after that.
Yeah.
So again, it was just about that kind of mind shift of doing things differently to accommodate the family life. But I think now, again, we're all used to that. Everyone's used to working on their terms. So I think it was probably quite new at that time, but now just people don't bat an eyelid to it at all.
What are things that you missed?
What, in terms of family life? Oh, for sure. And probably about that period as well, I started travelling. We expanded the business across the rest of Europe, so we had customers in Scandinavia, we did some work in France, we opened an office in Paris, we had people in Poland and the Netherlands, etc. So travel became much more focused, and it wasn't just getting the train into London, it was getting a flight from Heathrow to somewhere else. So 1-2 nights a week I was somewhere else and not at home. So yeah, absolutely you miss stuff, but technology helps you be there. You can video call home to see the kids, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So the first transaction, let's say, talk to me about the first transaction of cloud, and was that always the plan with cloud as well?
Well, in terms of selling the business,
yes,
it wasn't always the plan. And to be honest, we wanted to grow a successful business. Now we knew at some point, there could be an exit, such as an acquisition or some other method, but that wasn't why we did it. So it was a very interesting time, and as I said, that people started knocking on the door, and we started having conversation with people. So yeah, it was a very interesting, probably 6 to 12 months, because all of a sudden, to your earlier point, we started realising we've done something right here. We've actually built something that people are interested in. There is a value to this. What does that mean for us individually? We wanted it to be successful for the people that we brought on board. We wanted them to have a career and success, etc., etc. And the reason that we chose Aon Hewitt as much as they chose us was a lot of it was to do with their North American practice, because there was a company in North America called Omnipoint, and we knew those guys. They'd actually helped us out when we started the business, and we met them at one of the Workday conferences over in San Francisco. Yeah. Chatted to them, really nice group of people, got on well with them, supported us in those early days. They then sold the business to Aon Hewitt, so we realised actually, working with like-minded people, there was a lot to be said for that we knew we could be the European arm to what they'd already done in North America, which was very successful and something we aspired to. So I think that for us was quite a direction of travel, if you like.
Yeah. And how many other interested parties at the Aon Hewitt transaction did you have?
There were definitely 4 other people at the time. A couple of them were just tire kickers, so you kind of have conversations with them and realise it's not very, very straightforward. Yeah. A couple of them were very serious, and we got to good conversations with them and sat down around a table. Not quite lawyers at dawn, but not far off it. But then decided, okay, we really need to focus on one of these guys, and went down the Aon Hewitt route.
Okay. And how easy or how hard was the transition? Because you go from being a founder, yep, and being able to do people. Do I say this? You go from being a founder and being able to do whatever you want, but that's not actually the case, is it?
It's not at all.
People think that you can, just because you own the business, you do whatever you want, and actually you're working, double the time everyone else is, right?
Yeah.
But then going over to having a boss, yeah. How did you find that?
So interesting, and I think you make a great point that it's bloody hard work. Yeah. I'm looking at you here, knowing you've put a lot of hours, sweat, and tears into what you do.
Do I look
here.
like that?
You look very well for it, to be fair.
You got some miles on you, right? Hard paper round, sir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you go from that period of having a lot of stress, it's all on your shoulders, you got to remortgage your own house. Well, that's impacting your family life potentially. So, there's a lot of things that happen with your own business. You sell the business, it doesn't go away overnight, because you've still got challenges, you've still got, numbers to hit. It's not just a case of, right, here are the keys and off you go. It's a case of, right, well, within this 2-year period, you've got to do this, this and this. The numbers have to be right, and you have to do this with them. Interestingly, with the boss side of things, the boss was in North America.
Right.
So actually that gave me a fair amount of leeway to still run the business. They were very adamant. Aon Hewitt were great in terms of saying, look, you've got a successful business, you've got a brand. The brand's not, particularly well known outside the Workday side of things, so that won't stick around. But your people are great, what you've built is great, your customers are fantastic. So we want you to keep doing what you've been doing. There was no overnight change. There was transitional change of things like IT and infrastructure and offices, etc., which took, 6 to 12 months. So all in all, actually, it was quite an easy way to move into the new business.
Yeah.
I mean, we moved into the cheese grater when Aon took that on board, and I think that point to me was very different, because we'd stayed in our own cloud office, just us, little office around the corner. All of a sudden, we're in this massive skyscraper in London, thinking, "Oh crap! Okay,
Wow.
This is now a very big company."
So size of the business at this stage? So pre acquisition and then post acquisition?
Yeah, so the cloud business was about 100 people
Yeah.
Across Europe. Obviously, Aon was 80,000 globally,
Yeah.
but the Workday practice, I forget the numbers, it was something like 500 globally. So we were 100 in Europe, and there were about 50 of the Aon Hewitt people based mainly in Poland. There's a couple in London.
Yeah.
So we kind of absorbed them into our business as well. So we grew the European practice to about 200, 250 in that 2-year period.
So year we're talking about here?
2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember it very well.
Because you just set up in, was it 2014? Or?
No, we set up in September 2015.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
September 2015.
Yeah.
I first came across Workday in 2014.
Uh-huh.
I was an SAP recruiter at the time.
Yeah.
And I picked up the Philips project, and they came to me and said, "Look, we've decided to implement this product called Workday." And being an SAP recruiter and a previous Oracle recruiter, I was a bit like, "Workday? What's Workday?" I hadn't heard of it really. 2014. It's like, what's Workday? Do you remember those times when you used to meet people when they used to say, "What do you do?" And of course, for you, it was, I run a Workday Consultancy, and people would go, "Well, what's Workday?" That was when we set up.
Right.
And I literally just stumbled across it, and I thought, this is very, very early, as it still was in EMEA then, and day one for us, we just went Workday. It was
Obvious just to do that.
It was obvious to have that part of the business.
Yeah.
And after 1 year, then we shut down the other parts of the business and just went 100% Workday, which was when all the partners started to mobilise their practices in 2016.
Yeah.
You will remember it well.
I do indeed. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're Aon at the time.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And I think what we noticed was actually, big companies, very big, very successful. There's lots of people doing things. So there were ways into companies. So we'd say, oh, company X might be looking at Workday. So, okay, well, actually, we've done some work with company X in the business over here. So we were able to kind of get through, navigate our way to meet people and see customers that we just had no way of getting to at all. But then the flip side of that is internal bureaucracy. Well, you can't talk to that customer because they belong to the risk business, and actually you're not allowed to talk to them.
Right.
What is that? I'm just a simple sales guy. I don't understand what that means. But okay, we won't talk to them customers, but can we see these ones over here? Well, you can do, but you need to go and talk to that account manager and that salesperson, and they need to introduce you. So the frustrating
then you're
side
waiting for the introduction to come, which may or may not come. And
exactly.
Okay.
And there are also things like, you want to sell maybe a small project just to get your foot in the door to someone, knowing that it's going to lead to a much bigger project later on. Well, you can't do that because there's certain criteria you have to meet. So it's too small or the margin's too low, etc. So those kind of rules start to come into play, and from being the smaller company where it was just 3 of us saying, should we do it? Yeah, we shall. Fantastic. Move on to, okay, fill out this form, put it over here, speak to this person, get approval from this person. Starts to kind of wear you down, in a sense, just from that freedom.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So fast forward until the next transaction, because I don't want to go too much into the wearing down part, because I'll probably ask you a few questions that you don't want to answer. But at what point did you think, right?
So actually, and it's a really interesting, just from a timing perspective, that I was starting to think, wow, this is overly bureaucratic and not necessarily what I signed up for. And then the Alight announcement happened that we were divesting pretty much the whole of Aon Hewitt off from Aon. So all of a sudden, it was interesting because it was something different, something new, something quite fresh.
Yeah.
And for the European practice, pretty much it was my bit. It was Workday. So it was okay, right? Big in the US, there's all this benefit stuff that we don't deal with because it's US only. Over here, it was almost back to a small, nimble, right, go and do your thing, go and do what you need to do again. Yeah, there was still some of that internal bureaucracy, but it was much easier than it had been.
Yeah.
So I think for me, if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have stuck around. The
Right.
fact it happened at that time was a case of, okay, this is now interesting. Let's hang around and see what this turns into.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about the first 6 to 12 to 18 months of Alight as opposed to Aon.
Well, I think the first few months we didn't even have a name, so it was a challenge for many reasons. But obviously we went through that process and came up with the name Alight, and really good structure and leadership in Alight, and it was lots of flexibility to do things. How we'd done them before. We had this big US backing, so there was money there for marketing and events, etc. So again, it was really nice. It was fun. Great team on board. Again, I think for me, it's always back to the people. A lot of these people have stuck around since the cloud days and the PeopleSoft business before that. So it was a good, trusted group of people that I like working with.
Yeah. And we started doing business with you actually
did,
around that sort of time, didn't
Yeah.
we? We helped you build your practice quite significantly,
Yeah.
if I remember.
And actually, I think you were really useful outside the UK, because I think we wanted to move into Germany. We were doing a lot of work up in the Nordics, Netherlands, and I think you guys were very good at helping with those places where we didn't have the personal connections that we did here. So it was really good to get you guys on board and help with that.
Yeah. So we're now at Light, and we come into the end. Let's say the end of Alight.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of caused you to think my future is probably outside of Alight?
Yeah, it was first of all, it was a very difficult decision, as a company, and again, the people that I really like to work with a long time, a lot of them I consider friends and still do today. So it wasn't something that I just kind of thought on a whim. I think it was probably just fatigue, I've been doing Workday for so long, 10, 11 years at this period, and I still love Workday, the product, the company, the business, the people, etc. But just thought, you know what, maybe it's time for a change. And it was almost like a personal challenge. I wanted to see, was I successful because I know Workday, or could I go and do something else outside of the Workday sphere? Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, I just wanted a bit of a kick up the backside, go and do something different, go and just, get out your comfort zone. Exactly that. Just go and challenge yourself to do something a bit different. Yeah. So that's really what happened. And
how long was you thinking about it before it happened?
Probably a while. Probably subconsciously a long time, but consciously probably a good 6 to 8 to 12 months, I guess. Just thinking, what else is there? COVID happened at the time, and that obviously just completely changed things.
You did a podcast for us, actually, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
In COVID,
that's right.
And we spoke about the impact on Alight during COVID and stuff. So we won't go too much into that, but you can see that on some of our on our social channels if you're interested. So you come out of Alight. Mm-hmm. Do you think this decision was COVID fueled?
I think it probably was, looking back, and I think COVID was just such an impact on life in general. But back to your question about family, I'd spent the last 10 years travelling, not excessively, mostly in Europe, 1-2 nights away, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it has an impact. Yeah. COVID happens, I'm at home all the time. Yeah. Now, I guess people would either go completely stir crazy, or you just accept it and enjoy the time with the family. And I did that. It was great, actually, going out for bike rides with the kids, being at home, helping them with homework, which I'd probably neglected to a degree, if I'm honest. So I think for me, actually, it was a case of, right, well, this is something very different, the way we are, the way we think, the way we process things. So I think it was all built up in that, again, the kind of just subconscious, what's going on in your brain, time for a change. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the time when the cloud market really kicked off. Yeah, because you built a business before the economy really went to cloud. Do you know what I mean? We spoke about the on-prem, and there was still lots and lots of SAP and other on-premise solution implementations in 2018 and 2019. Yeah. I guess Workday were up against XYZ vendor and probably lost a fair few of them because they were on-prem because the market hadn't really changed their mindset.
Yeah.
And in COVID, it was, we have to let everyone work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, we've got an on-prem solution, we better go to cloud.
Yes.
So you must have really capitalised on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people kind of woke up and realised we can't rely on premise. We can't rely on this traditional way of working. And we've been working remotely for 10 years.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, our model was the default model, which was crazy when you think about it.
I remember that. Now you say about that, right? We were recruiting a lot of people for the partner ecosystem. And a lot of people were. I think that the conversation about remote working started probably 2018, 2019, and a lot of the Workday partners still had on-site presence.
Yeah.
And
so the bigger ones.
Yeah, a lot of them. And the people that really wanted to work remote, there was a couple of options, and you guys were one of those options.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And it's really interesting because I think the Workday methodology, the Workday way of deploying things, the fact it's cloud-based, mean that you didn't have to be sat on site with a customer all day long, and there are periods when it's really beneficial to do that when you're, upfront designing the system, when you're talking about things, when you're helping them do testing. Very, very beneficial. But also the model meant that you could work on 2-3 customers at the same time in a week, in a day. So if you're traveling to be on site, you just can't do that. So actually if you're working from your office or your home base, you can then work these 3 different customers, you dial into them, you do one, 3 hours in the morning, then you do another one over lunchtime, and then your third one the afternoon. And I think that model just really meant that the home working or the remote option was just a much more efficient way of working.
Yeah. I've just written this down before I forget to ask you, Matt. Do I heard something very interesting the other day from my chairman, and he said when you're growing a business, your success comes down to 1 or 2 decisions. Like you can either go this way or you go that way. And that ultimately has a huge impact into your success. When you look back from the moment that you started cloud to ultimately exiting Alight, give me 2 key points where when you think back, if you'd have chosen to do something else, perhaps you wouldn't have been as successful.
Well, tough question, and got to reach back in the depths of memory. I think one thing we did very early, so as I said, we started out Workday didn't have an office in the UK. When Workday opened an office in London, we opened an office in the same building.
Right.
And I think that was fundamental, that we were absolutely in each other's pockets. They saw us as an extension of themselves. They came to us when they needed something, whether it was help with a customer or going out to sales opportunity, etc. I think that was a really, really smart thing that we did. Funny enough, Workday then outgrew that office and moved. So, we moved to the same building down the road.
Same building as well.
And then they moved to not the current one, the one before that. We couldn't get into the same office, but we moved around the corner. So again, just being really close to Workday, I think was beneficial. The other thing, it was probably that home working, just allowing people to work from home, trusting them, as grown-ups, as adults, that you've got this work to do. We're not going to micromanage you. You know what you need to do. You've got to deliver it to your customers. You're as passionate as we are as actually delivering it to your customers, giving them that trust and that ownership to do that themselves. And the important thing was, not only financial, mean that we didn't need a big office to put everyone in, but it meant we could hire people from wherever they lived. People up in Newcastle or York or Scotland, whatever, that they otherwise wouldn't have been with us because they wouldn't have wanted to travel down to London.
Very, very smart.
So those are probably the 2 things.
Yeah.
What about you? What were your 2 things?
That's right in the locker. I don't know. When we started in 2015, the business was called Focus ERP, right, on day one. And we did Oracle, SAP, and Workday.
Yeah.
And those were the 3 areas. After the first year, 75 to 80% of our revenues was coming from Workday. But we had a huge SAP client.
Yeah.
So we made one placement in the first year on Oracle. All the rest was SAP, and the lion's share was Workday. And I think one key decision that has served us well until this day as well was there's actually two now. It's out of the locker now, Matt. Thank you very much for that. One day I just looked at our business, and I don't know whether Ryan remembers this, right? Because you was around in these days.
Yeah.
I looked at our business and I just went, there's nothing special about this. This is in the first year, right? And after a torrid first 4 months as well, where I was 200 quid away from going bankrupt. Wow. So you know, right? And I had my house on the line. So you can imagine those conversations coming back home and talking to your wife, and you know, she's asking, "We're going to lose our house." Wow. And they're like, "Yeah, we might." Yeah. And you kind of think, I shouldn't have done this. You know, I really shouldn't have done this. I should have just stayed where I was. You know, all those conversations go on in your head. And after the first year, we'd made a really strong profit for a business in their first year. And I thought, I've got to change it. And it was doing this. And I thought to myself, this is going to work, right? All the conversations that we've had. And I thought, I've got to drop those two. I've got to drop Oracle. Oracle was, you know, not that we didn't try to do some Oracle business, but we just didn't pick up any sizable Oracle business because our Workday business was so strong, and our SAP business was very, very strong with a couple of clients. And I thought to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become the first dedicated Workday recruitment company. Smart. Because no one else was doing it at the time. And I think the team was probably no more than 10 at that point. You know, no more than 10. I'll probably say 6, if that. And the team, I remember, looked at me as though I was nuts. We had significant revenue coming from SAP, you know, and it was growing. And all of a sudden, the guy who owns the company's turned around and saying, we're dropping this, and we're dropping this. And by the way, we're doing this properly as well. So we're not just not doing it, we are actually going to our customers, phoning our customers up and saying, I'm really sorry, but we don't do SAP no more. Wow. You know, I did that properly. And we went 100% Workday. So that was probably decision one. Yeah. If we hadn't have done that, maybe our growth curve had slowed. I was worried about that because that was brave. It was really brave. Why would you want to drop a business that's making lots of money? You know, but I thought we just got to do it because we got to be special, right? We got to stick out in some way. And the second one was the name. So at that point I changed the name, and we were going 100% Workday, and I thought, well, I'll just call the company Focus on Workday, you know. And I remember actually saying to Ryan, let's call it Focus on Workday, and we went ahead and was about to make the change, and then I thought to myself, Workday's probably 2,500 global customers in 2016, something like that. At some point, we're going to get to a stage where our customers are going to say to us, "But you know, you're doing such a great job in Workday, but actually we're implementing SAP for finance, or we're implementing SAP for supply chain, or we're implementing Oracle, or we're implementing Salesforce." Yep. And if I call the company Focus on Workday, I can't really do those things. Do you know what I mean? You can't recruit SAP skills if you called Focus on Workday, right? Yeah. So I thought, I need to call it Focus Cloud. So if I call it Focus Cloud, then that would allow us to branch out into any cloud markets that we want to. Yeah. And I think those two decisions early on were what caused our increase in revenue, and double and triple digit increase in revenue. Yeah. The other one, you said 2. There's 3. And this is a funny one, right? You're gonna laugh at this. was in COVID. So pre-COVID, we're about, say, 20 people, 2019, right? And we are, I don't know, how many people did we place with you in, let's say, 2018, 2019? It was tens of people, wasn't it? Probably 30, 35 people in 1 year, maybe, something like that.
Probably over that period, yeah.
So we're doing super, super well, right? And then I start thinking to myself, now is the time that we need to diversify technology. So it's pre-COVID, but running up to it. And our customers it was our customers that really drove that decision. So our customers were saying, you guys are doing, actually it was Alight. It was Alight that was saying, because we started doing business with Alight in the US, and we placed 45, 50 people with them in the US in 1 year. We did so well. And a lot of our customers had feedback, you guys are amazing, you're doing a great job, but can you help us with some Salesforce stuff? Can you help us with SAP? And I thought, well, we can't, because we're only Workday. Now let's diversify. So we diversified then in probably a week into COVID. So it's perfect timing on my part. No 5Ps conversation, please. There was no planning with it. Matt, there really wasn't. It was, right, next week we're going to launch an SAP business. We've got these SAP customers that want to do business with us. Let's launch an SAP business. It was really as simple as that. The third decision was that, do you remember when the market fell out at the start of COVID? And for me, it was a really challenging time. My father died in COVID as well, in April, and I promised my dad that we would do something great with this business, right? And then he left us, and everyone was working from home, and we as a business we weren't growing, man. You know, the truth is we wasn't growing in the early COVID days. We just bumbled along, and everyone had that fear, which in the first 5 years of this business we had no fear. You know, it was just all hands to the pump. And one night in June, I'm sitting at home and I'm thinking to myself, this is not what I promised everyone. You know, I never promised my dad that we would, be working from home on Teams calls and being fearful about the market and not doing things we really want to do and all these types of things. And it's certainly not what I promised everyone. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go for it. And it was a split decision one night. And then the following morning I called this meeting, and I had 7 or 8 guys on this Teams call. And I said to the guys, we've got X amount of money in the bank, and all of our competitors are making redundancies. Most other recruitment companies are letting people go. But this is not what I promised my dad, and this is not what I promised you guys. We're going to 100% go for it now, guys. And everyone went, what? I said, oh yeah, we're going to hire as many recruiters as we possibly can. And by the way, we're also going to move office. We're going to move an office to double the size in London. I wasn't even in the office, but I just knew I had to do something for the guys to go, he's serious about this.
Wow.
And that's what we did in the next sort of 4 to 8 weeks. We hired a lot of people. Do you know what? Since that third decision, we grew 400% in COVID. And I just think back, if it had continued being fearful, as I was being fearful.
Well,
I had personal issues. The company wasn't growing. We wasn't. We were still making money, but just wasn't growing at any pace. And that would be the third decision. I would say would be the critical one. If we hadn't have done that, we wouldn't be here today.
Take some kahunas
not
to
certainly.
do that.
Yeah. After I made this decision, I was thinking, I really hope that's the right call. We got some good people coming to the business.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it worked. You know.
When you talked about the name, Focus on Workday, I thought you were going to say we didn't do it because we had a Workday lawyer ring up and told us we can't.
No, we decided not to do it because we knew that it would segregate us only to the Workday ecosystem, which is nothing wrong with that, but As a recruitment company, you want to be able to diversify
yeah.
at points and help customers in other areas. So our Workday business is now called Focus on WD because we didn't call it Focus on Workday because I don't want that call from Workday lawyers.
No.
You know, but,
very deep pockets. I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, so you then leave Alight. Okay, what was it like the moment, because you'd done this business for such a long time, and I know it transitioned twice over that period of time as well, and your role had changed. But the first day you wake up and you don't have to go to work that day.
Yeah, interesting. And again, I talk about the time period because it was peak COVID. I didn't really see anyone. We had a Teams call kind of leaving do, which was great, but you know, it wasn't the get everyone together and sit in a bar all night long. I think I'd have been a blubbering wreck if I'd have done that. So it was a really weird sense of time. A couple of things happened. I fell off a bike. I really badly injured my shoulder, so I couldn't do anything. So it was just a weird period. I was kind of at home for the first time with nothing to do, first time for a long time. So I did lots of admin, sorting stuff out, cleaning the office, but very limited into what I could do. So it was just a weird time. Also, I thought, right, I need to go and do something, but I don't really know what it was. So I started just applying for a couple of jobs, doing stuff, trying a few things. People reached out on LinkedIn, so I had some conversations. So it was just a kind of time to reflect on what's going to be next for me. Yeah. And that was quite nice, actually, to have the time to do that and the focus to do that.
But the next role after that was not going to be Workday, right?
Correct.
So you were looking for like a kind of respite from the Workday ecosystem for a while.
Exactly. So I took a couple of roles actually. So I took a commercial role with a small tech company, totally different, nothing to do with SaaS technology, nothing to do with anything that I was familiar or comfortable with. And that was interesting because it was a completely different world. So it was learning from scratch. But I did that sort of part-time, and then I was doing some kind of non-exec strategic advisory type roles as well, which was really good because, again, it was just different. It was thinking about things, using the stuff that I learned around sales and people and partnerships, etc., but helping other businesses kind of do things. So totally different, but great. Really, really interesting year. I think it was about 12 months that I did that. Yeah,
I remember when you told us what you was doing. We was all a bit like, wow, okay.
Different. Very different.
And then there was a small stint with another Workday partner.
Correct, yeah. So again, I did some advisory work for CloudRock. I know Minos very well, known him for years, and just helped him out with some bits and pieces, and that was good. And actually, I think that was kind of I miss this world. I know it well. I know the people. It's comfortable. So I think that was almost a stepping stone to say, right, well, yeah, maybe now is the time to seriously start thinking about doing something similar that I'd done before.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then the transition to ending up where you are now to advisors. How did that all come about?
Well, so interesting story. It was a phone call from one of the advisors partners. So just quick jump back in time. So the advisors partners pretty much all came from either Aon or the Omnipoint business that I'd spoken about before. So I knew them really well. So they called me up and they said, look, we've got some investments in private equity, and part of the deal is that we expand globally. We're thinking about coming to the UK and having a footprint in Europe. And it was a bit of a dance around, okay, you thinking of doing this? And they were saying, yeah, do you know anyone who might be interested? And I was thinking, well,
they called you and asked you.
So it was a bit of a dance.
Do you know someone who's built a business from scratch, in the UK, has made it really successful, and that's what we're looking for, just in case you know anyone, Matt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they spoke to Matt Smith, who obviously I know well and love to bits, and he and I sat down, and again there was beer involved, and we said, should we do it? And we said, yeah, absolutely. But if we do it, here's what we want to do. We want to do it in this way. We want to bring these people on board, and went back to the partners and said, look, yeah, we're keen, but this is what we want to do, and that's exactly what we've done. So we've got a team on board. We've just started from not necessarily from scratch, and it's been very, very different, the journey this time, because we're 300 people in North America. We're a $50 million business over there, so it's been easy to say, right, well, we can do it and we can recruit people. There's work in North America, bring people on board, we'll actually sub them to those projects. Meanwhile, we can build the team up, start selling directly here. So it's been a really, really different journey. It's probably been, we've done in 2 years what probably took us 5 in the cloud period, just in terms of where we are today. Not necessarily in numbers, because we're less people here. I mean, we're still 50 people today. But because we've got the North American practice, we can utilise if we need skills.
Yeah. And obviously you've got the projects in the North American region, so when you bring on those absolute superstars that I've seen you hiring, then you've got work for them in other regions.
Exactly. So it was so low risk, because it was a case of just hire the best men. The partners said, just hire the best people. Don't worry about utilisation, don't worry about work. We'll fill them up with that, giving you the chance to go and sell locally and relationships with Workday in the UK, etc., which is exactly what we've done. And now we are pretty much self-sufficient. We've got our own customers here. We've got 7 phase 1 projects that we're working at the moment. We've got a number of AMS customers as well. And we're still subbing to the US project. So we're very busy, which is great.
Is there an element of your work now where you think back constantly to what you did in the early days of cloud, and what you could have done better?
Not necessarily thinking that, and I think we did really well considering where we were in the market and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There are some things that you look back and think, oh, shit, I wish I'd known that then that I know today. But that's just life, isn't it? You just kind of figure those things.
It's this transition of someone who's running a business, right?
Yeah.
You can always do things. Don't ask me the mistakes. How long you got?
Yeah. But the mistakes are important, right? The mistakes are what you learn. Okay, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe it nearly cost us a business, or just cost us a project or whatever. So not to do that again, and you try a different approach, and that's what helps grow things and achieve different aims in the future.
Yeah. So at what point did you know that you was going to come back into Workday before you did? And were there any other interested parties at the same time?
I think, like I said, I was starting to get the itch and say, right, okay, it's time to go back to what I know. And I got the phone call from the US partners, and at that point I thought, yeah, this is it. This is absolutely it. There weren't interested parties, but I was starting to put some feelers out, so probably would have started having some conversations if I hadn't gone down the advisors route. But just very happy I did. It's been really great so far.
Really good business.
Yeah.
Really, really good business. And you've built your UK team very strategically, I'd like to say.
Absolutely. We've gone for the best people in every possible role, and then
100%.
we're building teams underneath them. We've got the graduates coming on board who are just incredibly smart and bring a completely different perspective, which is fantastic.
How long did it take to really launch that UK function? I know you had the security of the US with their projects and stuff, but to really say that you've got a sustainable business in the UK and EMEA, how long did it take?
It's probably about 12 months, I think. It was about getting some key people on board. So in the first 12 months, we hired 2 salespeople, 2 sales directors, Tim and Matthew, who I think for me, that was the moment, like, right, okay, we are now going to make our own destiny. We're going to go out and do our own business. So that was probably the point that, right, we're not just hiring people to sub to the US, we're hiring people to build this business here to be self-sufficient, sustainable.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So Matt, you built a number of successful teams over your career. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular philosophy that you have, specifically around building teams in general, not only building successful Workday teams?
Yeah, I think it's something which, well, at the moment Matt Smith and I are very aligned on, in terms of getting the right people into the business is critical. I think if you looking at what we do, Workday, we can teach Workday. There's great training courses that Workday provide. We've got fantastic people who can teach people the technical, functional project management skills around Workday itself and around projects. So that side is almost taken care of. So what we look for when we recruit and building teams is, it's quite simple stuff. hiring some nice people that share our values. I think that is key.
What are those key values?
Key values is about trust and empowerment. It's about letting people, as we talked earlier, letting people have the ability to go and do their job and think for themselves. We want people that we can trust in a crisis. I think that's quite key as well, because projects. All our projects go exceedingly well and there's never any problem. There might be at one time. So we want people that we can trust. We want people that can, if you're in the trenches together, they've got your back. That they're there,
really important,
driving forwards. We've all got to do this one thing, which is get this customer live with a Workday platform on this particular date. And there's stuff happening, there's things going left field, there's stuff going wrong. We want people that will just drive towards that and be very calm and get to that end point. I think it is important as well to have different types of people on teams. If I went and hired 10 people like me, then we'd probably be very good at doing certain things, but not so good at other things. So it's about having different personalities. It's about having people who are, again, don't get stressed under pressure. But sometimes you want people who do get a little bit stressed and have that sense of urgency. So putting those people together on a project is quite key. So it's about finding the people that work well together is really important.
Yeah, I think when people, you can see people get stressed when they're under pressure. For me, it's something that I don't want to see people stressed, but I don't mind seeing it if that makes sense, because I know they care. Someone who doesn't get stressed when they're really under it, you kind of question whether, well, do you care? Because I care.
Yeah.
I want to see blood. You've got to see blood, sweat, and tears, haven't you? At some points.
But a bit of stress isn't a bad thing. It helps to focus. I mean, there's chemical things going on in your brain when you get stressed that mean you can focus and you can do things. So stress isn't a bad thing. If people get stressed over the slightest tiny thing, that's a problem. It's got to be the stress for the right thing, and stress that they can then control and drive towards the goal as well. If they're just stressed and running around with their hands in the air, then that's no good to anyone.
When tell me about a time when you've been particularly stressed. And was it? Tell me about a time when you were stressed in cloud, and then tell me about a time in Alight, because they're different stresses. Without a doubt.
So I think the stresses in cloud were probably all we spoke earlier about those early days when it is a case of, right, we are absolutely up against it. If we don't get this invoice paid tomorrow, we can't pay the salaries. Then these are people that rely on us for that. They've got their own mortgages and things to pay. So stress is probably all related to those early financial days.
Were there quite a few of those?
There weren't a few of them, but there were enough to remember. Yeah, and I think it's hard because you think, okay, well, we've got to keep enough cash back in the business, but then you've got to grow the business and you've got to recruit people and start driving the business forward. So you can't just keep money in the bank for it when you're growing a business.
Yeah.
There was a period as well in those cloud days when we actually got sued by a French customer, which I won't go into details, but that was quite a stressful period. The only saving grace to that was it was just before we got acquired by Aon. So we obviously had to declare it as part of the due diligence, but then it was a case of, right, now we've got some very big, scary lawyers, they can deal with this kind of stuff, and they did, and made that problem go away. Had we still been cloud, that would have been quite a horrific experience.
Really?
Yeah, would have been awful.
What sort of impact did that have on you? Because you're one of the line shareholders. That's an interesting one. That.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, I'll tell you at another time, Lloyd, when we're having a coffee together. But yeah, it was a very stressful period, and I'm someone who doesn't get stressed. I'm normally very, very calm, but that period itself was just difficult, and it was a stupid, ridiculous situation. We weren't actually in contract with them. We'd walked away under Workday's advice, but under French law, the fact you were negotiating a contract was as good as signing it, so therefore we'd broken a contract. So you learn a lot of things in business that you don't necessarily expect to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think again timing was just incredible. That had we not have done the sale to Aon and then had the support from their legal team, it would have fallen on us. It would have been very expensive, etc. So that was a stressful period.
Yeah, because I guess the whole contract. We don't want to go too much into it, but the whole contract was probably under French law as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And we'd set a business up in France. We'd set an office. We'd hired some people because we saw France as being the next big thing for Workday. And again, it's like, well, that's all going to get completely pulled away from us just from this one issue, which had frankly blown out of all proportion.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then moving to Alight.
Yeah, I don't remember anything being particularly stressful. I mean, it was the usual stuff of, there were quarterly numbers to achieve, there were yearly numbers to achieve. It was that kind of stress. It was just the case of, okay, right, well, we have to win this particular project to make the quarter number, and if we don't win it, then how the hell are we going to get around it? So it was that kind of stuff, just general kind of run-of-the-mill stuff that was stressful.
Different type. Then.
Yeah, different type of stress.
Yeah.
It wasn't my money on the table, but ultimately I was responsible for that number. So
I get it. Yeah.
Could get sacked if you don't achieve it.
I get it. Yeah. You've been involved in the cloud ecosystem for a long time now. Mm-hmm. What sort of future predictions do you have for the cloud markets? And also, what do you think? Tell me what you think about AI.
AI, everything these days has to have AI in the conversation.
They do.
Absolutely. I think from, again, just looking at purely through my Workday lens, as I do with most things, I think Workday is just going to keep getting bigger and better. I mean, Workday are acquiring businesses that have filled gaps in their own.
Some great acquisitions recently.
Fantastic acquisitions, absolutely fantastic. So I think we'll see a lot more of that, and this is across all the different cloud applications as well as building out functionality. I mean, Workday is great in terms of a customer has a requirement, so they put a brainstorm on and other customers vote on it, then you see that down the line. You see that particular feature, function, area of the system being built out. So again, I can only see Workday getting richer and broader and covering more of the spectrum of what's required. AI is absolutely going to be critical to that. I do have a kind of wry smile when anyone says AI these days. It's like you get a toaster, it's got AI on it. It's just every single thing. I think AI isn't always intelligent in the way that people tout it as, but I think there's some fascinating things around machine learning and just, it's all about data for me, and it's about cloud systems having access to so much data. How can we channel it? How can we do more with that data and understand and predict what people are going to do in business? So, I've done this and this. What is the next logical step I'm going to take? Well, using all this data, there's a 97% likelihood you're going to do this. There's still a 3% chance you're going to go and do something completely different. So that, to me, isn't artificial intelligence. It's just being smart with data.
Yeah.
But I think the true AI stuff, the true AI of actually being that intelligence of taking the data and predicting and analysing it and understanding it, I think is going to be phenomenal. Absolutely fascinating.
It's interesting. I was in an event the other day, and the individuals I was with are actually from Workday, mm-hmm. and they were saying that that it's been there for 10 years already.
Yeah.
And just because everyone in the last couple of years has started to talk about it, we almost think it's a new thing that Workday has implemented, and it's not. It's already been there.
It has, and I think that, again, the Workday model, the way they've built the system, is just ability to take this data on board and to understand it and learn from it, etc. So Workday have been very, very good. They've been at the forefront of it. But I think there's a lot more out there that, will Workday start linking to ChatGPT and some of those other systems, and just the power when you start building that into something like a Workday business system is just unknowable what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is.
Very exciting.
Yeah, very much.
Especially with the advances in finance as well.
Yeah.
Let's hope that's implemented. All right. Okay. And then last of all, advice. What advice would you give a young person looking to enter let's say the Workday ecosystem now?
I'd say don't do it, because I don't want competition. It's great, and that's a very tongue-in-cheek comment, because I love giving advice out to people. I think it's fantastic when people come up and want to do something a bit different. I think the advice is very different to when we started the business. Everything has moved on significantly. I think what I would say to them is just try and pick an area to get very good at, become a niche, whether it is Prism or it's the adaptive planning or AI type areas. Find something you can get very, very good at and specialist in, because all of the systems out there are so broad, they're so vast now that trying to do everything, you're not going to do everything very well. But if you can focus on one area and become the experts in that, the go-to partner, then you'll be setting yourselves up for success.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you always focus on that area, and like you said with your business, you can then branch out and do the next area and the next area, but become really good in these kind of pillars of expertise.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who's branched out really in those offshoots yet of Workday.
No.
I think we're about to see that.
Yeah,
I believe
probably maybe because the offshoots themselves aren't big enough. So maybe after you're starting out, you could become a Peacon expert, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
But to be a Workday potential player, then I think you've got to have an area that's going to be big enough to keep yourself fed and watered.
Yeah. Matt, this has absolutely been great to have you here. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Lloyd,
Till
always
the
a
next
pleasure
time.
to talk
Always
to
a
you.
pleasure.
It's been great. Thank you for the chat.